get into this take here that I've just popped into my head, and there's two parts to it. One, I think, as sad as it is to say this, and we've obviously been looking at some of the all-time great players recently, and this player's on this list. I think Carmelo Anthony's career is done. I don't think we're going to see him in the NBA. And I know we saw he made headlines when his kid played LeBron's kids, yeah, a few weeks ago, and it was I don't know really, it was an eye-popping affair. I think Keon sort of scored 8 points and Bronny scored 12. Yeah, what a riveting matchup, right? But then they made the headlines, and Carmelo said he was in a good spot, and like he's just waiting for an opportunity if it comes along while he stays ready. Isn't that what every aging player in their twilight says? And my take here though is that not only I think Carmelo done. We're not going to see him anymore. And I know whether you probably agree with that, but we probably could have seen a bit more Carmelo, because if he had never left the Nuggets and he had never sort of forced his way out of the Knicks, he probably would still be in the league in a bit of a veteran role. But because he sort of really bounced around, he's a player that has no real home. And because he really didn't sort of provide that loyalty that other players did, like Dirk, Kobe, of course, UD at the Heat, in that sort of sense, no one wants to give him a contract right now, even as a bench player. And I think that's something that maybe players should consider, especially as their career is starting to wind down. What's it going to look like once they hit that sort of 35 years sort of age, and then maybe they're going to try and get 5 more years out of the career. They play to their 40. But how can they do that? And it's not just accepting roles. It's about being in the right spot and putting yourself in the right spot. What do you reckon?
Garnett is one that came to mind, talking about that loyalty paying off. So his final season, he gets his farewell tour in Minnesota, despite going to Boston, having more success there, and then obviously doing a mini stint on, Brooklyn, right? And then the famous quote for Paul Pierce as he's trying to do his farewell tour on the Clippers, you're not Kobe, right? So there is something to be said for some loyalty, or at least sticking it through. And Carmelo is probably a victim of the player choice era, right? LeBron, wherever he chooses to go to finish off his career, will still be revered, right? He doesn't have to go back home to the Cavs to get that farewell tour because it's LeBron, it's generational talent. But for everyone else, if you keep bouncing around from team to team and you're trying to do that ring chasing or best fit scenario, whatever it may be, and you go 3, 4, 5 teams in your twilight, kind of like Westbrook as well, OKC might be his home, but he's now accrued 5 different jerseys since. It might not be legacy damning, but it might end your career a season or two earlier than it should. So for Carmelo, Portland, and LA at the age of 35 to 37, he averaged essentially 13 points or more on a pretty good clip. We could make the case and say he can't defend anyone at this stage, and there's probably not a lot of benefit towards signing a player like that. But then isn't there instantly comes to mind, it's not the right fit, but let's say Houston, right? Are you sure that he wouldn't be a good shooter for two ISO dependent ball scorers on Jalen Green and Kevin Porter Jr.? Do you not think that there's value in that to give him $2 million just to do that kind of role? Maybe, but there's probably other stuff that goes behind the scenes that, right? I think the NBA owners.
Well, he burnt his bridges in Houston anyway, right?
That's
they send him away after 10 games and said, "That's all right. You can just stay home, right? We'll pay you."
And that's the thing, right? So you look at his career, he had a chance to sync up with the Miami Big Three and obviously chose to do a different contract. He's done some press conferences, podcast stuff where he's kind of talked about his separation of the Nuggets. And he felt that he requested that trade because they weren't taking the right steps to keep the contender going, which you could make a case to say that's probably true, but that's retrospective. Goes to the Knicks. Obviously, the Phil Jackson thing comes in. Amari Stoudemire gets hurt. Jay Lynn takes some of the spotlight. His career has a truckload of what ifs. And had he stayed in Denver the entire time, how do they look? I think you look at it in current day. Do they even have Jokic? Maybe, because he was picked with the 46 pick. So, are they having some weird Dirk Lucas sort of thing? I like the scenario. I think we could compile a mini list here of players who burnt out the last 5 years of their career.
You could definitely, I think, if you think about this, sit down and to take a bit of time and Googling and research that here's a list of players that was able to extend their careers through to their late 30s, 38, 39, 40, because of the loyalty factor and or because of their willingness to be a mentor. I think that's where Vince Carter really fit in, and he did go from to the Hawks. He had no real connection with the Hawks besides it was his hometown, I believe. But he hadn't played for them when he went there in his twilight days. Okay, but obviously he had a motive to stay there and a willingness to share the knowledge that he acquired over his career with the younger players there. And that's why I think they kept him on board for so long, even though he wasn't that productive until he finished his final year. And then on the other hand, you have players like Carmelo, players like Dwight Howard, players like Iverson, okay, that never really thought further ahead, like where they were at that point in their career and what steps they could take at that point, whether they're able to or not. Perhaps some players are just simply not able to evolve into that sort of style of mentorship and personality, perhaps, but also choices. There's also quite a level of choices on what they make towards that point of their career and how it might give them this last final stops, before they're said and done. I guess, every player retires at some point, right?
Yo, this is Two Guys with Spare Time. I'm Faz, this is Nick. You're probably a basketball fan like us, so hopefully you can throw us an assist in giving our video a like and subscribing to our channel.
And if you got thoughts, feelings, or even some suggestions, please put them down in the comment section below. And thank you for using your spare time to watch us in our spare time.